What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 78, Dos Anjos versus Vicente Luque. Real quick, I'm going to go over the results of my betting last weekend. Had a pretty good night, made some money. As far as my posted bets, I only had two plays. I had a one unit play on Kevin Holland, that one hit. I had a two-person parlay on Simmelsberger and Bonfin, and that one didn't hit, obviously. And I had these parlays here that I cashed these out after Derek Lewis won, just because I was trying to get out while I was ahead. After Simmelsberger lost, I immediately went and added these, and there's over $600 worth of profit right there. And then this one right here, which is a two-man parlay of Bonfin and Kevin Holland. It's almost $800, $793 there. And I also, let's see. I guess I forgot to take a screenshot of the ticket, but I did add a play on Derek Lewis. He was like a plus 170 or something like that. And I was pretty confident, that he was going to win. He came in looking better than ever with a six-pack, and honestly, I was pretty hammered by the time he was about to fight, so I just added a play on him, about a unit and a half on him. So that was a big plus money play, which is why I cashed. I took this one. This one had already hit, and I took those other parlays and cashed them out too. I was like, I'm good now, So it came out with some good money, man, and could have been better on the picks. I think I picked like eight of the fights right, but I always pick a lot of underdogs. Y'all know that. And any other than that, man, I've been down for like 3 days, so if I sound like crap, it's because I'm in a lot of pain, man. I don't know what I did. I don't know if it's a pinched nerve or a pinched nerve or a pulled muscle in my back. I just woke up that way. I don't have no idea how I did it, and yeah, it's very painful to sit up in the chair, and do this stuff. There's really no way I can sit where I'm not in pain. And this has been like 3 days of this, man. It's finally starting to ease up a little bit. I tried to do this video yesterday, and by the time I got halfway through the card, I was just in my back was screaming, and the pain was spreading around my arm up into my chest. So I was like, fuck it, I'll try it tomorrow, man. But I appreciate y'all for putting up with me, man, and for caring what I have to say. And let's get into this card, man. And then also, man, if you guys have any tips, if there's something I could do that would make my channel better for you guys, please tell me, because I've been trying real hard, with all this stuff. And I've kind of gotten to a point where like I've been stuck at the same, amount of subscribers for a few videos. And, I was like, I bought ads and tried to do all that stuff, and it helped with the views, but not with the subscribers, So, don't know what else I can do, as far as, getting more people's attention and stuff like that. If there's something that y'all think would be better, please let me know. Because I've been stuck around 350 subscribers for a while now. So, and I see these other channels that come on and they're not half as good as me, and they get tons of subscribers and stuff and everything. And of course, they've been around a while. Those channels have, but I mean, still, I don't know. I feel like I put a lot into this, a lot of good things, but I'm not going to talk your ear off. That's probably one of the reasons nobody subscribes to my channel, is because they have to listen to all my bullshit for the first 10 minutes of the video. But yeah, this is a card where there's a lot of fights on this card, man, that I'm like, who cares? I mean, not a whole lot to get excited about, breaking down the tape on this card. Obviously I'm happy we have a fight card every weekend, but this is one of the, the shittier cards, I think, that we've had in a while. And sometimes those turn out to be the most exciting, so, we'll see. But yeah, man, the only fight we lost so far apparently is Gaston Bolanos versus Marcus McGhee, and JP Bai stepped in to face McGhee on short notice. So let's get into the first fight, man. And oh, by the way, if you don't want to watch my videos, you just want to see my picks and my bets, you can go over to my Instagram. It's highkick_fight picks. And also there's a Facebook group, High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook, easy to find if y'all are interested in any of that. and nobody won the contest for the free UFC merch. I'm probably going to do something different with this video if I haven't already put it on here. Maybe at the end of the video I will. Um, but yeah, let's get into the card, man. So first up, we got Josh Parisian taking on Martin Bidet. And Josh is 34 years old, 6'4", with a 79-inch reach. He is 15-6 and 2-3 in the UFC, and he's a plus 180 underdog. And yeah, Josh had a lot of knockouts before the UFC, man, but only one finish in the UFC, only 2 wins, in the UFC out of 5 fights. Honestly, he's only beaten really low-level heavyweights. He's going to be a speed disadvantage in this fight. He did have a fight with Walt Harris fall out a few weeks ago. Harris tested positive for steroids, and I don't think he really needed the steroids to beat Parisian, honestly. I'm not sure why he did that, but he owned up to it. He made a mistake. He said that. I think it was something serious too. So I don't really have any good things to say as far as Josh's skills here. His takedown defense is pretty bad. I guess he can push a decent pace for a big guy. He is still improving. He has looked better at times, but if he can in this fight, Parisian's going to want to go for takedowns. But I'm not really sure that he'll be able to get Bidet down. Nobody else really has. So Josh is going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. That's something going for him. But I just think that there's not a lot that I can say in his favor in this fight. So he's taking on Martin Bidet. He's 31 years old, 6'4", with a 77-inch reach. He is 12-1 and 3-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 210 favorite. And man, I had a big play on Bidet in his last fight, and even though it paid off, I was extremely disappointed in his performance. He didn't look like the big favorite that he was. He's got 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission on his record. He's a big, powerful guy. He probably comes into the fight at 275. He's got to cut weight to get down to 265. Hasn't gotten any finishes in the UFC yet, but I do really think he is better everywhere the fight goes in this match. And he has pretty good boxing. He moves pretty well for a heavyweight. Uses his uppercuts well in the clinch. Decent enough striking defense. And he's apparently a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, just doesn't use it at all. We haven't seen anything at all that he has any submissions in the UFC or anything. So he can be a pretty slow starter at times. I wish he would throw more kicks instead of just boxing. And I think he wins this fight, man. I think he outstrikes Parisian over 3 rounds. Parisian hasn't been getting finished, I don't believe, has he? Nope, he has not. So yeah, I'm gonna take Bidet to get the win by decision, unanimous decision. Yeah, he's definitely the better boxer of these two, and that's how I see this fight taking place, is just kind of two big guys boxing. So sorry, I'm trying to stay as comfortable as hell, so I'm having to lean back in my chair and then go back up to the computer, and I got to do it, otherwise I'll be in a lot of pain, dude. I've just been sitting around for the past 3 days watching Quentin Tarantino movies, and I just got through watching Dusk Till Dawn this morning. I love that movie. And but yeah, next up we got Juliana Miller taking on Luana Santos. Miller is 27 years old, 5'7", with a 66-inch reach. She is 3-2 and 1-1 in UFC. She's a plus 110 underdog. I'm a fan of Miller's, man. She was pretty much the only reason that I watched the Tough show, the Ultimate Fighter show that season. Her best skill set is her jiu-jitsu and her grappling, and the fact that, she just doesn't stop coming at you the entire fight. And she can really wear on you, And that being said, I think we saw in her last fight that, even though she has a skill set, I don't think it's fully developed yet. Doesn't have a lot of experience, taking on a veteran fighter in her last fight, she was making a lot of mistakes. Her striking and her striking defense looked horrible. She was standing really square in front of her opponent, and giving them a lot of targets, to hit, and just really getting pieced up and rushing in and getting caught, and she was really having trouble closing the distance, without getting punched 2 or 3 times on the way in. She was doing a lot of following her opponent rather than cutting off the cage and creating angles, which is, striking 101, and she was throwing up a lot of submissions, but, she was throwing them up kind of like wrong, or going or continuing for ones that she doesn't have, kind of holding on. I don't know exactly what was going through her mind there. And she did keep pulling her opponent down on top of her. And I wasn't sure if that was on purpose or not. I don't know if she was pulling guard or if she was just making a mistake in the grappling and ended up on bottom. She kept getting reversed. I just wasn't a very good look. And she was a big favorite in that fight. And I want Miller to win. One of the pieces of UFC merch that I have is an autographed glove that she autographed, and we keep doing the contest for that. And this is an opponent that's a little bit closer to her skill level. They're both fairly inexperienced. Um, Juliana's actually had the experience in the UFC a little bit, so she does have that advantage in this fight. She's taking on Luana Santos. She is 23 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. She is 5-1, and this is going to be her UFC debut, and she's a minus 134 favorite. And Luana's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, 3 wins by submission. She's never won by knockout. She has a judo background, has good throws, pretty high level judo practitioner. And this could be a tricky fight because Miller is actually pretty dangerous off of her back. That's kind of where she wants to be sometimes. And, which is where Luana's going to, want to keep her. She's going to do her throws and she's going to get her down and just like she's always done in all of her fights. And, Luana is good at, she's good at trapping the arm behind her opponent's back from top position and just kind of raining down blows that way. Her grappling and takedowns are on point, at least from what we've seen so far. She hasn't fought the best competition, but she has looked very dominant. She throws good elbows on the ground. I'm picking Santos to get the win by decision, but I really wouldn't get heavily invested in this fight. You got two relatively inexperienced fighters that are, constantly working. Miller might come in here looking like a whole new fighter, so I wouldn't get heavily invested in this fight. Next up, we got Marcus McGhee taking on JP Buys. Excuse me for a second. I'm going to grab some water. Oh. I know y'all love hearing that every video, huh? Marcus McGhee is 33 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. He is 7-1 and 1-0 in the UFC, and he is a minus 425 favorite. And it's kind of crazy being only a second fight in the UFC, but there is good reasoning for it, I guess. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He has 6 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. All of his wins have been by finish. He's very exciting, very fun to watch. He came in on short notice and made Jordy Newsom look like he didn't belong in the UFC. He's very powerful and explosive. He's a good size for a bantamweight. Very good striking, throws hard calf kicks. His takedown defense has held up so far. And, he's very fast, throws nice combinations. He's definitely going to have the power advantage and the striking advantage in this fight, no doubt about that. And it really all comes down to is his takedown defense going to hold up against a guy with a good wrestling background like JP Buys. McGhee does have decent jiu-jitsu, but he prefers to strike. And they haven't been able to see much of McGee's jiu-jitsu off of his back. So that's still up in the air as far as I'm concerned. He's taking on JP Buys. He is 27 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. He is 9-5 and 0-3 in the UFC, and he's a plus 325 favorite. And he's got 3 wins by knockout, 5 by submission. All of his wins have been by finish as well. He just hasn't been able to get a win in the UFC. And, to be fair, he has fought some pretty tough guys. If you look at, the 3 people he's lost to, Bruno Silva, Montel Jackson, Cody Durden, all tough guys. So, when you look at it that way, it's not quite as bad as you think because nobody's beating those guys right now, and, it's, he's known for his wrestling, but he just hasn't been able to really use it in the UFC yet. So I'm not totally convinced that he is that great of a wrestler, but, he's going to be at a serious size disadvantage here. And, this fight is at bantamweight. Buys normally fights at flyweight, and I really feel for Buys, man. I'd love to see him get a win finally in the UFC, but he has been finished in all 3 of his fights in the UFC. And if he wants to win this fight, he needs to go out there and go for takedowns immediately and use his wrestling. Because the bottom line is he is not going to have success on the feet against McGhee. And as much as I hate it, man, as much as I wish JP could finally get a win in the UFC, I'm going to be picking McGhee. I think he wins by first round knockout. And that just sucks because JP, I'm sure he's a cool guy, I hate to see him lose 4 in a row in the UFC and then get cut and have to work his way back. Uh, Anyways, next we got Brady Headstand taking on Damon Blackshear, and I'm a big fan of Blackshear, man. Well, actually, both of these guys. Um, Brady is 24 years old. He is 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. He is 7-2 and 2-1 in the UFC. And at the time of me doing my notes, the odds weren't up on this fight, but I will check right now just to see if they're up. Maybe I'll get lucky. I really want to see who the favorite is here, and who the underdog is, because it's an interesting fight. I'll check on Bet Online. See if that has it. No, it's still not on here, man. Hmm. It's not on there. I'll check Bovada as well. Which this fight's been up the whole time. I don't understand why they don't have the lines out for it. Um, doesn't make sense, man. Yeah, it's not on Bovada either, as far as I can tell. Oh well, man. This is one that I would actually be interested in having some action on too. So yeah, no odds. I took Brady as an underdog in his last fight, and it paid off. But he was losing that fight in the first 2 rounds. Danab Bacteri was catching him with some good shots and dropped him a few times. Brady does have 3 wins by knockout, 2 by submission. He has pretty good takedowns. He usually goes out there and gets the takedowns in every fight. He always does. And in the Tercios fight, he was falling into a lot of submissions, but he did defend them all pretty well. He's never been submitted. His striking is really wild. He wings a lot of big shots. He does get hit quite a bit. And, really he kind of won his last fight just on having the better conditioning at the end of round 3. The fight was almost over. He was probably going to lose the decision, and he was able to get the win with like 45 seconds left in the fight. And he just kind of had more to give at the end of the 3rd round. So he's got good conditioning, good cardio. He's a pretty big guy for bantamweight. And, he kind of he's been working on his kicks a lot, and he moves side to side now. Something he didn't do, earlier on in his career. He moves side to side and draws his opponents, into his kicks. And he was having a lot of success with them, in his last fight. He switches back and forth from southpaw to orthodox a lot. Good jiu-jitsu. He's probably going to have the wrestling advantage in this fight, but and I think he'll probably have to use it to get the win here, but that can be pretty tricky because Blackshear is dangerous everywhere. He's very experienced, very talented. And Blackshear is 29 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. He is 13, 5-1, and 1-1 in the UFC. Yeah, his first fight was against who was that? Yusuf Zalal, and I thought he clearly won that fight, but it was a draw. And then he fought Farid Bassarat, really tough guy, and that was his loss in the UFC. And then his last time out, he looked great, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. I took Blackshear also as an underdog in his last fight, and he won very impressively. He beat that guy everywhere the fight went and got the finish via ground and pound. He's very well rounded. His striking's looked a lot better than it has earlier in his career. It looked better than ever, and he has 2 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission. He is very dangerous on the ground. He's a very good grappler. The only thing I can say bad about this guy is that there have been times where he was just a little bit too comfortable, being on his back, looking for subs. And whenever he did do that, he gave away rounds that way. And unfortunately, in the UFC, they don't really ever score guys that are constantly going for submissions or anything. And like I said, his loss was to a Bassarat brother. Both those guys were undefeated. He made a pretty good account of himself in that fight as well. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. Really nice Muay Thai. He checks kicks very well. He has good wrestling, fights well in the clinch, great submission defense. He's never been submitted either. Very fast, throws nice long combinations, doesn't overexert himself on the feet. And he has very good sweeps. He uses his Kimura really well to sweep and get top position. Very dangerous with that. And I think Blackshear is very talented, man. This could be a close fight. because of the wrestling of Headstead. Maybe he's getting the takedowns and Blackshear's doing more damage. Um, could go could be close, could go either way, man. But I'm gonna be picking Blackshear to get the win. And just because Brady hasn't been getting finished, I'm gonna say by decision. Um, but anything could happen, man. And Blackshear is very exciting. Looking forward to this fight a lot. Next up, we got Francis Marshall take on Isaac Dulgarian. And Francis Marshall is 24 years old, 5'9", with a 72-inch reach. He is 7-1 and 1-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 185 favorite. He's got one knockout and four submission wins on his record. He's coming off a split decision loss in his last fight where he kind of just didn't use his wrestling quick enough in that fight. He started using it in the third round, and it wasn't enough to get him the decision. Um, he's a big guy for featherweight. He's very powerful and explosive. He made his debut, knocking out Marcelo Rojo, who's a very tough guy, very experienced guy. And, Francis has fought the way tougher competition out of these two guys. He's a very good wrestler. I think he may have fell in love a little bit with his hands after the Rojo knockout. And it cost him in his last fight. He was fighting a very good kickboxer, and he shouldn't have been out there striking with him. He should have been using his wrestling, So, he needs to go out there and stick with what he's good at here. Go out there, get the takedowns. And if he doesn't want to lose two in a row in the UFC, man, because then automatically you're just pushed to the back burner. So and he's fighting a guy who's debuting here, so he's expected to be, on point and get this win easily. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. He's taking on Isaac Dulgarian. He is 27 years old, 5'7". We don't have a reach on him. He's 5-0. This is going to be his UFC debut, and he's a plus 155 underdog. And all of his wins have been by finish, both KOs and submissions, and hasn't really fought that much tough competition yet until his last fight. He beat a guy that was 7-2, in his last fight, and yeah, that guy was like 6'4", and he's 5'7", so it was a very impressive win, how he was able to go out there and just run through that guy very quickly. He's a very good wrestler himself, man, and great jiu-jitsu, very heavy ground and pound. There's a lot to like with this guy, man. He hasn't been in a close fight yet. He's been dominant all the way through, and he's going to have a speed advantage here, and it may very well be that, both these guys wrestling is going to cancel each other out, and the fight will play out on the feet. And if that's the case, I feel like Dulgarian may have a pretty good shot at it. He's going to have the speed advantage. He is going to be quite a bit smaller, but I don't know, man. It works well for him. He's very fast and he hits very hard. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take a shot on the dog here, man, and I'm gonna pick Isaac to get the win. As far as a method of victory, he's won all of his fights by finish. So you want to go with a finish. I'll say round 2 submission. Maybe he hurts Marshall and jumps on a choke or something to that extent, man. Should be a very fun fight, though, man. Next up, we got Maserat Ruiz taking on Jacqueline Amoriom. And Ruiz is 30 years old, 5 foot tall, with a 61-inch reach. She is 10-2 and 1-1 in the UFC, and she's a plus 250 underdog. She's got 2 wins by knockout, 3 by submission on her record. She's going to be at a major size and reach disadvantage here, that's pretty much all of her fights, and her record isn't really all that bad, so she must find ways to make it work. I'm a fan of this lady just simply because she has a Captain Spaulding tattoo on her leg. It's like one of my favorite characters ever of any, movie or whatever. So, respect for that, man. And, she has decent wrestling. She kind of like forces people to the ground, with like a headlock type takedown. Just grabs them by the neck and kind of puts all of her weight into the front and pulls them right down. And she's very good at holding people in that position. She was a 7-time Mexico wrestling champion. Seems to be very, very strong, very good at holding her opponents down. She pushes a real tough pace. She does wing shots pretty wildly. She kind of does that just to close the distance and get a hold of you. Her striking, it's because of that, she rushes in a little too much and may run into shots, which is how she lost the Amanda Lemos fight, which I really don't hold that fight against her because Lemos has gone on to do great things since, and she's proved to be very tough. It has been almost 2 years since since we saw Maurice fought, Maurice Ruiz, Ruiz fight. I'm just hoping she's been working on her striking in that time, man, and making the little improvements that she needs. So, um, she is very small, man. For a there's not a smaller weight class in the UFC for her. She could probably fight down at a lower weight. So she's taking on Jacqueline Amoriom. She is 28 years old, 5'3" with a 67.5 inch reach. She is 6-1 and 0-1 in the UFC, and she's a minus 310 favorite, which is crazy that she could be that big of a favorite especially with the way she looked in her last fight. She's got one win by knockout, five by submission. All of her wins have been by finish. And I gotta say, like I said, I just don't understand this. She just lost to Sam Hughes, and Sam used her wrestling to get the win, and that's what Ruiz is good at, wrestling. And anyways, Amorim has great jiu-jitsu. She's going to be the better striker of these two, probably, at least over the Ruiz we saw a few years ago. And all of Amorum's wins have come in the first round. She did gas out badly against Sam Hughes, and there's not much more to say here, honestly. I don't like the line at all. If once Amorim gets out of round one, she starts trying to pull guard because she's gassed out. It's not a good look. And she's very good for the first round, but that seemed to be all she had in her last fight. So if the price was way lower, I would pick Amorim to get a first round finish, but not for this price. So I'm going to take Ruiz to get the win. Wouldn't get heavily invested in this fight at all. Might put it in a Hail Mary parlay, but I'm going to say that Amorim probably has a good round one, and then Ruiz takes over for the next two rounds and wins the decision, man. So I just can't go with Amorim at that big of a price after if you watch the tape on her last fight, you'll see what I'm talking about. Next up, we got Lando Vannata taking on Mike Breeden. Lando is 31 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. He is 12-7-2 and 4-7-2 in the UFC. He's a minus 260 favorite. This is another line I don't really understand. Obviously not quite as inflated as the other one, but neither of these guys have really looked all that good recently. And if you look at the wins that Lando has in the UFC, they haven't been over anybody good, really. I mean, I don't think any of them are in the UFC anymore, I guess is what I mean. Obviously, they were good enough to make it to the UFC. Obviously, they could kick my ass probably. I'm old now. So, where was I at? Oh, yeah, he has 4 wins by knockout, 5 by submission. He's been submitted twice in the UFC, but he has never been knocked out. He made a decent account of himself against a very talented Daniel Zellhuber his last time out. He landed some good shots. He had his moments. He got hit with everything in the first round and was able to survive and end up going to a decision. Lando's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. He's very fast. His striking's gotten a lot better, in the last few years. Just hasn't gotten the results he's been looking for, and he's gotten a lot better at using his kicks. He switches stances back and forth to set up his kicks. He's very hard to keep down if you do get him down. Made lots of improvements, man. He just hasn't gotten the results that he's been looking for. Like I said, he's been jumping up and down weight classes trying to find, where he feels best at. And just hadn't been able to get the wins yet, man. And this is going to be at lightweight. And, he was using his calf kicks very well last time out. He's pretty good at slipping punches, and to close the distance and get the clinch. And he was creating angles very well in that fight, After he survived the onslaught in the first round, he was landing some good shots. He does really look like he's made a lot of improvements. He just hasn't got the wins. He's taking on Mike Breeden. He is 34 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. He is 10-5 and 0-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 200 underdog. He has 8 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. He's never been submitted either. His losses have been to pretty tough guys. Natan Levy is undefeated in the UFC, and Alex Hernandez is very powerful. He catches guys sometimes. He's taken a year off to work on himself after his last loss. He's very fast and explosive. Has pretty good takedown defense. He pushes a really tough pace in the first round. He had a good first round against Natan Levy, but he appeared to kind of slow down quite a bit after that and got dominated the next 2 rounds. This fight could probably go either way, but I don't think I'll get invested in this fight at that price on Vannata, but I will pick him to get the win. I'll say Lando gets the win by second round knockout. Next up, we got Josh Fremd taking on Jamie Pickett. This is another fight that you're kind of like, who cares, you know? Like, I actually thought pretty highly of Josh Fremd, you know, until he lost his first two fights in the UFC, and uh, yeah. But Josh Fremd is 29 years old, 6'4", with a 76.5-inch reach. He is 10-4 and 1-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 300 favorite. Uh, you know, once again, neither of these guys have looked particularly good, you know, lately. You know, Frem did beat Cedricus Dumas his last time out, but Dumas just kind of showed to be very inexperienced. You know, he didn't have a whole lot of fights, and he made a lot of mistakes that Frem was able to use his grappling advantage, you know, to get the win and the submission. And he's a big guy, man. He's got 4 wins by knockout, 4 by submission. I mean, has very nice chokes, throws a lot of kicks to the, you know, kind of like Pickett guys at range with his long legs. And, you know, he looked great his last time out, but man, you know, I know everybody thinks Jamie Pickett's, you know, really bad or whatever. But, you know, Jamie Pickett's been in the UFC. He's fought a lot of tough guys, you know, and, um, you know, he's a lot more experienced than Cedricus Dumas. So, I mean, you got to at least give him that. And, but yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot more to say on that. He's taking on Jamie Pickett, 34 years old, 6'2", with an 80-inch reach. He is 13-9 and 2-5 in the UFC. He's a plus 225 underdog. He's going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage, 8 wins by knockout, 1 by submission on his record. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. His wins haven't been over anybody good either. I mean, I guess Jamie is always live for a knockout. He does hit hard. I kind of want to pick him because every time I pick Fremd, he loses. But I'll go with Fremd here, I guess. You know, I'll take it to win by submission. Not super confident in it at all. A lot of risk there, you know, at that price for not much value on Fremd. I'd kind of like to see Jamie Pickett win, honestly. You know, he took that fight with Bo Nickel, you know, knowing he had almost no chance. He's a tough guy. He's not scared of anybody, so it'd be cool to see him win. But I'll pick Josh Fremd. Next up, we got Khalil Rountree taking on Chris Daukaus. This fight was supposed to happen not too long ago, maybe a month ago. Khalil is 33 years old. He is 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. He is 12-6. Oh, sorry. I'm reading the wrong stuff. Chris Daukaus is 33 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. He is 12-6 and 4-3 in the UFC, and he was plus 172 underdog. I don't know why I did that backwards on my notes, but I did them out of order. So I was a big fan of the Daukaus brothers, man. It's kind of sad how things went downhill for them. You know, Kyle kind of had a mixed bag of wins and losses and is now no longer with the promotion. Chris had a good run, you know, winning 4 in a row by knockout, you know, when he came in. They pushed him to the top of the division really fast, and, you know, now he's on a 3-fight losing streak, all knockouts. I mean, this is going to be his light heavyweight debut. You know, he always was. He would come in weighing like 230, so I always kind of thought he should be at light heavyweight anyway. You know, but once again, they're not doing him any favors here. You know, he's taking on another guy that's you know, a knockout artist, and yeah, I just don't know, man. I think they should have given him something a little bit easier for his light heavyweight debut if they really want him to get back on track, but maybe they don't care. He's got heavy hands. He has 10 wins by knockout on his record. I mean, he has very good boxing. He's always been pretty small heavyweight, so that gave him a speed advantage, you know, at heavyweight. I'm just not sure if that's going to carry over, you know, down at light heavyweight, you know, with the smaller guys. He fights very well in the clinch with his elbows and his punches, dirty boxing, puts out good volume, good combinations. It's hard for me to give you much more than that, seeing, you know, he either goes out and gets the quick knockout or he gets knocked out. So I haven't got to see his ground game. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing him at light heavyweight. I hope he does well. He is going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. And he's taking on Khalil Rountree. He is 33 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. He is 11-5 and 7-5-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 215 favorite. And yeah, Rountree is on a good run. You know, even though I think he robbed Dustin Jacoby in his last fight. He's got big power in his hands. You know, nasty elbows and knees. We've seen him take guys out with kicks. Very good Muay Thai. Khalil has really put it together lately, man. And he used to have fights where he would go out and kind of like not throw enough volume, or he would hurt guys and let them off the hook. But his past three, he's been locked in, man. He's looked really good. And yeah, even though I think he lost the Jacoby fight, he was probably landing the more powerful shots while Jacoby was doubling him up on strikes. So maybe that's why the fight went that way. It was close. He's very strong and very explosive. Seems like a real nice guy. We've seen him struggle at times at wrestling, but I don't think that's a worry for him here. Daukaus isn't known to go for takedowns. He counters very well. He's at his Khalil's at his best whenever he's the one pushing forward and pushing the pace and keeping his opponents on the back foot. And I really want Daukaus to win this fight, man. I'm a fan of his, but I have to go with Rountree. And if Chris wins this fight, I'll start jumping back on the bandwagon with everybody again and stuff like that. But I got to take Rountree to get the win, and I'm going to say he gets the win by knockout. I think the safest bets for this fight would be the under 2.5 or under 1.5, one of those. Probably under 1.5 would be a safe bet on this fight. I don't know what those prices look like, but I'll check later on. Maybe I'll post it on my Instagram if I decide to go with that bet. Next up, we got Tafon Nchukwi taking on AJ Dobson. And Tafon is 28 years old, 6 foot tall with a 77-inch reach. He is 6-3 and 2-3 in the UFC, and he's a minus 143 favorite. He's got 4 wins by knockout, none by submission. He's going to have an inch reach advantage in this fight. His record doesn't look really good on paper, man, but he's only lost to really good fighters, and and to be fair, he was dominating the Mirzakhanov fight before he got caught, in the third round, and he's very powerful. He has good kickboxing. Uses a lot of feints to open up his power shots. He's really good at ripping the body. He'll rip the body and come over with the head kick. It's a slick combination he does. He will have the striking advantage in this fight, in my opinion. But, he fights very good in the clinch with his dirty boxing, throws hard kicks to the body. I like to see guys who invest in the body a lot, man. And it's really beneficial, to slow your opponent down with body shots. And he has pretty good takedown defense. I'm really interested to see him, against a little bit lower level of competition. The last 2 people that nchukwi fought were, world-class, kickboxers. And this is going to be a little bit more level playing field, I guess, for this fight. He's taking on AJ Dobson. He is 31 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach. He is 6-2 and 0-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 117 underdog. And Dobson has 2 wins by knockout, 3 by submission. He hasn't really looked that good in the UFC, man. In the Malkoon fight, he got out-wrestled and had a little success with his hands in the first round. But eventually Malkoon was able to get the takedowns and control him. He's very athletic, heavy hands, kind of questionable cardio as far as like the third round goes. He has smooth striking, just hasn't had success in the UFC with it yet. And he's very fast. He throws good combinations, lots of kicks. He has a wrestling background. I could definitely tell that there's a lot of talent there, and he has had moments where he's looked really impressive. I can't really see why he's an underdog. He's never, or I guess I do see why he's an underdog because he's never had a win in the UFC. But he is very athletic and very fast, and it's not like he's been getting finished or anything either. It's been decision losses. I think I'm going to take the plus money on AJ Dobson. I think his speed and his athleticism will get him a win in this fight. I think he's going to be I think he'll probably be faster than Nchukwi, after watching the tape. He's very, very snappy with his strikes and stuff. I think he'll get the win here. And I guess I'm going to go with by decision since Nchukwi hasn't really been, well, I guess he did get finished in his last fight, but Dobson hasn't been finishing anybody lately, so. Next up, we got Viana taking on Yasmin Lucindo. And Viana is 31 years old, 5'5", with a 67-inch reach. She is 13-5 and 4-4 in the UFC, and she's a plus 160 favorite. Plus 160 underdog. And Viana has been around quite a while, man. She's very experienced. 5 wins by knockout, 8 by submission. All of her wins have been by finish, and hasn't really beat anybody I would call like super impressive or high level. But She has great jiu-jitsu. She's going to have a 1 inch reach advantage. But what is impressive is that she's got, she's a finisher, and there's not a lot of women out there with that many finishes or that all their wins have been by finish. So that's impressive. She's going to want to use her ground game to get the win in this fight. She's not going to want to fight on the feet with Lucindo. Uh, she's a little bit too flat-footed in her striking, and she's very dangerous off of her back. Really nice arm bars and triangle chokes, and I think that's how she's going to have to get the win in this fight, man. Um, Lucindo is definitely a better striker. Lucindo is only 21 years old, 5'3" with a 66-inch reach. She is 14-5 and 1-1 in the UFC, and she's a minus 197 favorite. And Yasmin's a very good striker. She throws everything big and all her power into all her shots, and she can actually keep it up through 3 rounds. She doesn't really get gassed out doing it, which is surprising. But and yeah, she's young. She's going to constantly be improving. If she keeps this fight on the feet, man, where she can definitely get the win. But I don't think she needs to go to the ground with Viana. Yasmin has been submitted 3 times, and she's never fought someone as good on the ground as Viana. And I like Lucindo's boxing, man. She throws a ton of volume, very aggressive, pushes a tough pace. Um, she would probably be even better, man, if she would kind of, straighten up her shots. Those, straighten up some of her punches and throw, you know, um, not as many just huge hooks and stuff like that. Even though she can keep it up and she's had success with it, she throws vicious combinations. She's very fast. She has 8 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, and this is actually a tough pick, man. This is kind of a striker versus grappler fight, and normally I would say go with the grappler. I do like Lucindo a lot, man. I just kind of worried a bit for her here. I don't want her to go to the ground with Viana. I'm going to pick Lucindo to get the win, but if it goes to the ground, might want to just live bet Viana because Viana will submit her if she goes to the ground with her. And but Lucindo does have pretty good takedown defense, and I'll take her to get the win by decision. Next up, we got the co-main event: Cub Swanson versus Hakeem Dawodu. And Cub is 39 years old. He's almost 40 now, man. That's crazy. Um, 39 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. He is 28-13 and 13-9 in the UFC. He's a plus 210 underdog. And yeah, Cub's a veteran, man. He's well-rounded. He's always live for a knockout. He has 12 knockouts on his record and five wins by submission. He's very powerful. I hate having to talk about him, like this because I've been such a fan of his for so long. But, let's kind of face it that, he's on his way out. He's been in the UFC since 2011. And he has great striking. He just seemed to kind of slow down a bit, and even though he knocked out Darren Elkins, but Darren isn't really that good, at least with his striking, so it's not surprising that he knocked him out to me. Um, it's we've seen Cub kind of, struggle with the calf kicks in the last fight. He lost due to calf kicks, and it's just hasn't really looked all that good, man, lately. And I would like to see Cub win this fight, but I don't think it's going to happen. This isn't the kind of fight he should be taking at this point in his career. He should be fighting other, older veterans, of the UFC, in my opinion. He's taking on Hakeem Dawodu. He is 32 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. He is 13-3-1 and 6-3 in the UFC, and he's a minus 250 favorite. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a very credentialed Muay Thai fighter. He went 42-5 as a Muay Thai fighter, and great striking. He did lose, pretty badly to Julian Erosa, but I think he had a really bad weight cut for that one. He couldn't make weight, and it just kind of sapped his cardio out, and he didn't look like himself. He's got 7 wins by knockout, and most of his fights in the UFC have gone to decision. He's been fighting pretty safe. Very technical with his striking. He's very, very fast. Uses good push kicks and calf kicks, which will serve him well in this fight since we've seen Cub get finished with leg kicks and kicks to the body in some of his last few fights. So I expect Dawodu to take advantage of that. He throws a really wide variety of strikes. Good elbows in the clinch. I think he's better everywhere here. But if Cub was in his prime, it would be a different story. But I'm going to be taking Dawodu to get the win by KO due to body shots or body shots like a kick to the liver. As far as a round, we'll say round 2. Next up, we got the main event. Vicente Luque taking on Rafael Dos Anjos. And Luque is 31 years old, 5'11 with a 76-inch reach. He is 21, 9-1, and 14-5 in the UFC. He's a plus 105 underdog. He's gonna have a 6-inch reach advantage here, man. He's the bigger guy. You know, he's the more natural welterweight. Dos Anjos makes 155 all the time. Luque has 11 wins by knockout and 8 by submission. You know, primarily known for his striking, but he does have a really good Darce choke, and his last 2 wins were with Darce chokes. And he's coming off his first knockout loss ever to Jeff Neal. Before that, he got out-grappled by Bilal Muhammad, and you know, he's got a lot of really impressive wins on his record, man. If we look at his record, you know, that's why up until I don't think he's ever been an underdog in the UFC, you know, in his entire career. He's got wins over Michael Chiesa, Tyrone Woodley. He knocked Randy Brown out. Nico Price lost to Stephen Thompson. He beat Mike Perry, Derek Krantz, Brian Barberina, Jalen Turner, Chad Laprise, Nico Price again. He fought Leon Edwards to a decision. He beat Bilal Muhammad back in the day. Hector Obina. You know, he's fought a lot of tough guys, man. He's had a very good career in the UFC, man. So I guess I do understand why, you know, why he's never been an underdog in any of his fights. And, you know, it's just, you know, he hasn't really looked like himself in his last few fights, man. He's got a lot of really impressive wins, but just hasn't looked like himself. And in his last 2 fights, you know, he's a very well-rounded Muay Thai guy. Jeff Neal was able to beat him with superior boxing. And, you know, Luque's got, you know, dangerous knees and elbows, great calf kicks. And he's very skilled, man. It's just, like I said, his last few fights, he just has not looked like himself. And, you know, this is going to be a fight where his takedown defense is going to have to hold up. His gas tank's going to have to hold up. And he definitely is the better striker here, and he could definitely get a knockout in this fight. But are we seeing, you know, another Tony Ferguson-esque drop-off here, you know, where Tony wins 12 fights in a row and then loses 6 straight or whatever, and, you know, or is Luque going to come out and get the win, you know? If I was going to bet Luque, I would bet him by knockout for sure. You know, we know Dos Anjos is just going to push him up against the cage and try to wear on him and get him down. He's taking on Rafael Dos Anjos. He is 38 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach. He is 32-14 and 21-12 in the UFC, and he's a minus 125 favorite. And he's been in the UFC since 2008, man. He's still very competitive. Went to a 5th round with Rafael Fiziev. He's a former champion. You know, he's got great grappling, great submissions, 5 wins by knockout, 11 by submission. You know, he's very good at what he does, man. He smothers guys up against the cage and dominates in the clinch. And, you know, he does his best work when he's pushing forward. You know, he has really, as far as his striking goes. And he has great takedowns, double legs and trips, world-class jiu-jitsu, really good arm triangle. You know, great elbows in tight, very good ground and pound, and great cardio. You know, it's crazy because if Luque's last 2 fights hadn't happened, he would be a huge favorite in this spot. And when it comes down to it, it's just, will Luque be big and strong enough to keep Rafael off of him and keep the fight on the feet? This is going to be a 5-round fight, and that's going to benefit Dos Anjos. And I kind of want to pick Vicente Luque, man. I really do. But I'm going to pick Dos Anjos to get the win. I'm going to say he wins by submission in round 3. Luque may have success early, but I think eventually the pressure and the grappling of Dos Anjos is going to take over. So, but yeah, that's it for my picks. As far as my bets go, I didn't have time today to make the flyers. Let's just say I didn't feel like making the flyers to post on here, but I will tell you what my bets are for this card. And so first up as far as a single play, I only have one. I got a 3-unit play on Hakeem Dawodu. And then I have a 2-fight parlay that is Bidet and Rountree, and that's a plus 121. And that's a 1-unit play. And As far as parlays go, I've got dawodu bidet rountree, and that's plus 210. And then I added McGhee and Dos Anjos to that. That's plus 597. And then I added Dobson in vannata, which is plus 1996. And then I added Santos and Dulgarian, and that's 89 plus 89 and 89, or 8,989, not 8989. And that's it as far as that. As far as the bets go. If the more stuff comes up, I'll make the flyers and I'll put them in all my stuff so you guys can see them. And yeah, man, I really appreciate it, man. And thank you guys for listening to me. And please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.